What started on the drawing board became a trophy. Engineers at Federal Premium Ammunition designed the trophy-bonded tip bullet to deliver devastating, bone-crushing performance. With a translucent polymer tip and boat tail design, Trophy Tip provides flatter trajectories and improved accuracy. Plus, a solid copper shank jacket and bonded core mean high weight retention and deep penetration. Trophy Bonded Tip from Federal Premium Ammunition. Claim your trophy.
Live from the Deer and Deer Hunting headquarters here in Iola, Wisconsin. Welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to Deer Talk Now. Brad, it's September.
Fall is here.
Where did the summer go?
I don't care. It's hunting season.
Exactly. You're starting when?
I leave Friday for Kentucky. Openers on Saturday morning.
Saturday morning. By the way, he's Brad Rucks. I'm Dan Schmidt. Thank you for joining us. You're heading to Kentucky. I'm heading to North Dakota. It's on. It's on. And what's really cool are these states that have bow hunting seasons that start that early.
I've already been getting pictures from people from North Dakota. Some of my buddies are out there hunting and shooting some good deer. I know.
Nice deer, and still some of them still in velvet.
Yeah.
Which is I'm looking forward to. If I see a nice one this year, I'm not passing. I'm not a velvet deer.
I won't either.
It's really going to be cool. A lot of fun. We hope everybody's getting excited for bow season, even if your season doesn't start for a while. We know a lot of you don't start till October. And that's got to be tough. But, here in the upper Midwest, we do have seasons that start here in 2 weeks in Wisconsin, in Minnesota and other places. But out west, some really great opportunities. We're looking forward to that. Be sure to check out the deeranddeerhunting.com website, the main page. We're going to have bonus content for you here in the next 2 weeks on some of these seasons that are opening and some of the deer that we see that are coming in. Like you said, some great trail camera photos.
Yeah.
So we'll get that going. Today we have a special guest in store with us, Kasey Morgan. He's a blood trailing expert. He trains dogs to find deer. We're going to have him on here in a little bit, but Brad, it's a pretty timely topic to have on right away.
Yeah, absolutely, because everybody hopes to make the perfect shot, but how many times does that really happen? Or the guy thinks he made the perfect shot and ends up, gets on the ground, can't find his deer. So, I mean, it's something to think about. Unfortunately, bad shots happen, and we want to help you deal with it.
Bad shots happen. We're going to give you a lot of great information. Kasey's going to give you some tips, mostly on the things you should not do when taking up a deer blood trail. And you're going to be surprised at some of the things that you might have taken for granted that you thought otherwise. So he'll be on here in a few minutes. First, before we have a couple reader questions. Again, everybody, you can send them through Facebook, the Deer and Deer Hunting Mag Facebook page. You can send them through Twitter. We've been getting them through Pinterest, Google+. You send them to us. We'll try to answer them. If we answer them, you get a prize pack from Deer and Deer Hunting. Again, this week's prize for anybody who asks a question that we answer will be the 2015 Whitetail Daily Calendar. Very cool product, very popular since we introduced this. 4 colors. Photos for every day. You rip it off. It's got a little factoid on there. We're going to get one of those out to you. But again, I tell everybody, you don't send me your mailing address. You're not going to get it because I'm not going to remember. Send me an email right there on your screen. Tyler's going to put it up there, dan.schmidt@fwmedia.com. Just say, Dan, you or Brad answered my question. We'll be happy to get your prize out to you right away, and you'll be able to enjoy that. Another thing I got to mention, also, the October issue of Deer and Deer Hunting is on newsstands right now. If you're not a subscriber, and you should be, it's $19. You can't buy coffee for that for a couple days. No. $19, you get Deer and Deer Hunting 10 times to your mailbox. What better deal than that? The October issue, though, if you want to run out and get it right now, it's got Charlie Alsheimer's annual rut predictions in there. You do not want to miss it. If you only have a couple days to take vacation at work, Charlie tells you the 5 days that are going to be best this year. So that's on newsstands right now. Couple products today in shopdeerhunting.com. We have 3 products, and Tyler's going to show you all 3 of them. We've been talking about them, and they've been enormously popular. The first one is the super hot Ma-Mah doe call, buck call. We had Jerry Peterson on here 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Talking about the Ma-Mah call, and I'm going to use this right away in North Dakota because I know it works. Like I said, when Jerry first came out with this call, it's been, it's been a while. It was several years ago. I shot my first Pope and Young buck with this call. called a big 8-pointer off a ridge and came right in. But you can use it on does, and I hope to do that with a bonus doe tag here real soon.
That call is in my pack as well, going to Kentucky. So
You got the super hot Ma-Mah call. You can get that one. We also have the fawn Ma-Mah call, which is specifically for hunting does. If you want to fill your freezer fast, get a doe in the freezer right away. Check out these calls. They work. It's proven off of research that Jerry's done. Very good quality calls, and you're going to want to have, especially the super hot Ma-Mah call. It's $19.99 today at Shop Deer. The second product is if you're starting your mock scrapes, which a lot of guys are now that it's September. Some guys started a month ago and have been getting some good photos. We've constantly preached about the preorbital gland and what that means in a scrape in the natural setting. Smokey from the hills of West Virginia, he came up with a real preorbital scent. Don't tell me how they get it. I actually know how they get it. They squeeze deer eyeballs at the butcher shop to get that preorbital lure out of there. But it is the real deal. You doctor your licking branches with this, and you're going to see more bucks, and you're going to get more photos at your scrapes. It's Smokey's Preorbital Lure. That's on sale at the store right now. We have limited supply of that, so once that stuff's gone, it's gone. So you better get it now if you want to have any kind of mock scrape, to doctor your mock scrapes this fall. And the third product is a popular one. I used this last year, really like it. Viking Solutions High-Tail Field Dressing Tool. And this, you'll wonder why you never had this in your pack before. Folds flat. And basically, you'll see it here in the video. At any order at Shop Deer, put in the word Deer Talk, one word in the coupon box. You can get 10% off your order. That's enough for the sales pitch for today. Those three products, check them out. Shop Deer Hunting. They're both on the main page. Brad, we have two questions that we're going to answer before we let Kasey get on here, and we're going to talk about blood trailing with him. But the first one, both these came from Facebook. Again, thank you, everybody. We surpassed the 400,000 mark on fans for Facebook. It's at 415,000 today. Incredible. We want to thank everybody for the enormous success of that page. And we're just going to keep bringing you great content like we always do at Deer and Deer Hunting. But Josh had the question, Brad. He says, I've always been a 30-yard or under shooter while bow hunting. Bow season's going to start for him pretty soon, and he wants to know what he can do to extend that range by at least 10 yards.
Well, hopefully, you know, if he means soon, like he has a month, it's easier to do. You know, I tell everybody, if you want to shoot longer, shoot 20 yards further than what you really want to shoot. So if he wants to get that 40, shoot at 60. And if you can start grouping at 60 decent, when you go to 40, it's going to be right there. It's going to be little softball, little golf ball sized groups. But it's really that concentration on your form. And just to show you, I mean, we shoot out to 100 yards, and I had a great group, and I've already missed the target. Just one little flinch when you're shooting at extreme distances. So that extended range really helps you concentrate on your form, and it's going to make you a better shot. Now, like my son, I was trying to get him to shoot better. I want him to shoot 30. He's only ever shot 20. He's 14. And we just slowly graduated back because, you know, for him to shoot at 50 yards wouldn't make sense. I mean, his arc's going to be so high, we'd spend more time looking for arrows out in the bean field than we really would have. So him, it was just gradually. We went back from 20 down to 25, and then we jumped to 30, and then we got him shooting at 30, and then I went to 35, and that's where he's been shooting a lot this summer. And he's good.
But he's been shooting for all summer.
He's been shooting all summer long, and that's the biggest thing. Practice, practice, practice. How many targets? I mean, we just preached the season starting in 2 weeks, and as I drive down the roads, I'm starting to see the block targets or the targets just coming out in people's yards.
Just showing up
and
now.
I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are in serious trouble. They should have been shooting for months already to really feel comfortable. What people don't realize when it comes to your archery gear, it's more muscle memory, and that shot's almost automatic. And when you get to that stage where it is automatic, that's what it's going to make you.
Brad, you know, there's really great information. The other thing that I'd like you to touch on is, what about pins? You know, a lot of guys will take that sight that they get, and it might come with standard 3 pins or 5 pins. Do you recommend, if a guy's going to want to up that range, that he's going with, you know, 5 pins, say, if he's shooting out to 40?
Yeah, you know, if he's shooting at 40, I'm probably in it. If 40 was my max, I'm literally going to have a 20, 30, and 40-yard pin. Because you just don't want to cloud. I don't want anything additional in that side picture unless I have to, you know. So like where I practice out to 80 yards, yeah, I'm going to go down, I'm going to have a pin for each one of those, especially the one thing that you notice on your pin gaps are as you go further away, it gets larger. There's that sight that Trophy Ridge has. It's called the rack sight. It is cool as heck. Basically, you sight in your 20 yard, you sight in your 30 yard, and if they're right on the money, you can go back and use the third pin, and it's going to be at 40, and the next pin is going to be at 50. It is a cool.
And then
cool
you can
product.
basically shoot gaps too.
You can shoot gaps.
And what do you mean by? I know you talk about that, but for somebody who might not know what that term is.
So the deer comes out, he's at 35 yards, and you got a 30-yard, 40-yard pin. What do? You know, basically for me, I'm going to put the 40-yard pin on the heart, and the 30-yard pins are going to be probably in the high lungs, and I'm going to hit that deer dead.
And you're going to hit right where you want to hit.
Yeah. You know, there's nothing better, especially if you don't know how far that deer is, by putting your 20 and 30-yard pin in the kill zone, and you know he's going to die. I mean, as long as you make the shot, you execute that shot, that arrow is going to hit within that zone. You know, so specifically, you know, if you're in a tree stand, make sure you use a rangefinder. Make sure you know the yardage. Do that before the deer comes out. I always laugh at the TV shows, and we do it once in a while as well. I mean, how many guys are pulling their rangefinder out as the deer's out there? I better know exactly where that log is. He's at 35 yards if he comes there. You know, so you're going to range all those trails, and that's going to make you a better shot too. So it's one less thing you have to worry about because you already did it.
I agree. I've been doing the same thing with I've been shooting the Matthews Creed XS this year, and I've been using an Apex gear sight, and I have 5 pins on there. But what's nice about that is, like you said, if they're right on, you don't have to really. It's automatic.
Yes.
But like you said, you have to have those ranges. If you're pulling out that rangefinder last second, that could lead to trouble.
Yes.
Excuse me. Sorry about that. Okay, last question. Facebook from Michael. Michael wants to know, and this is going to give a great segue to Kasey, talking about blood trailing. He said he's asking me, if I could give one tip for finding his deer when he goes bow hunting, what would that be? And it's not, you know, everybody's thinking about, excuse me, a magical answer, and there's not. The one tip that I would give anybody who's bow hunting, and this sounds general, know exactly where that deer was standing when you shot at it, and exactly the last place you saw it run. And like you said, we're on TV and we don't want to blame anything for TV, but how many times, especially a lot of guys now are hunting with a buddy.
Yes.
Whether they're filming each other or they're just going out there sharing, and you shoot that, you release that arrow and you look up and you're giving high fives and you're all excited, and then it comes down to it and you walk down there, you can't find your arrow, you don't know where the deer went. Where did it go? Well, it went that way somewhere. Well, knowing precisely the tree, the rock, the blade of grass where that deer went into the woods is going to help you, especially at night. You know, if you don't know those things, where that deer was standing, a lot of times if you're hunting a rye field or something, it's hard to find the arrow, and you might not have blood right away.
Especially when you're a newer hunter, you know, there's so many things that are going through your mind, and if you executed that shot, I mean, you're so happy that the shot went well that you really don't think about it. And my best example is when Noah shot his first buck, and we shot this thing at 10 yards in a scrape, and he didn't make the perfect shot. He hit the jugular, but we saw blood spewing out of the
That was just on this Sunday, by the way.
Yeah, and anyway, as it ran away, so I let him do everything. I was going to let him blood trail, and he jumps out, and he looks like, I swear, we're 7 yards from the scrape, you know, like 3 yards away from the scrape, and he's looking for blood. I said, you know, and I had to tell him, I said, Noah, what was that deer doing? Oh, yeah, he was in the scrape. You know, and then we went to the scrape, and then there was bare dirt there because it was underneath the scrape. And he goes, I don't see blood. I said, well, which way did he run? And you know, then he started looking, and he was going to go the wrong way. I said, where did the deer run? You know, just think about it. Replay it in your mind. And then he turned around, and there's a blood trail that you could have, you know, it was like a highway that was going away from that. But had he went down there by himself and made that exact shot, he would have struggled finding that deer because he was nowhere near where he needed to be.
And that's the key. Know exactly where the deer was, exactly the last place you saw it. And a plug, we talked about that. Noah's hunt was featured on DDH here this past week. But our three TV shows, in case you don't know, Deer and Deer Hunting TV on NBC Sports, Destination Whitetail on Sportsman Channel, and Land of Whitetail on Pursuit. You can go to our website on the main page, just click on over to the main page where it says shows, click on there and you'll find out all the airing times. All the shows are airing right now and for the rest of the fall. So check on the air times. We're going to give you regular updates on the episode content. So we have that look. That was a great hunt, by the way. Noah's hunt. He was very excited, and and the fact that you were there with him, it had to make it that much sweeter.
It was funny because what you don't see is there's another buck behind that deer, and he's like, "Which one should I shoot?" You know, and he was so excited, and I'm just relax. We're going to shoot the first one, but for him, I think it helped. You know, being that first time hunter, and you've hunted with your daughter. I swear, if you weren't there, that wouldn't happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
Last year, I let him try to make all the decisions, and he found out it's a lot harder when you're making every call, what stand you're going to hunt, which way the wind is, than it is when Dad's taking you out.
Very cool to be there and share it with them. Okay, I'm going to segue out of here. We're going to get Kasey on, and he's going to give you some great information on blood trailing and using dogs to find your deer.
Kasey, welcome to Deer Talk Now. Give everybody a little bit of background, you know, where you come from, what the company's called.
The name of our company is Bloodhound Deer Tracking Services. Bloodhound Deer Trackers is what we've changed the name to now. We're a game recovery service based out of central Wisconsin, right here, right down the road. We specialize, you know, essentially what it is deer hunters that are unable to locate, you know, find wounded game. They give us a call, and we come out with, just so happens that we choose to breed the Bloodhound, hence the name, and we'll come out and give it our best go at finding that deer.
Well, since you probably have more experience going down poor blood trails, what are the most common mistakes? You know, give us 3 or 4 of the most common mistakes that people will have.
Well, essentially, you know, sitting over here really thinking about this, it really begins with the shot, you know, and you got to kind of back up a little bit and think about shot angle. And I mean, that's kind of an off-topic subject. However, it really comes into play when you're thinking about how to take up the track on a deer.
Yeah.
And, you know, shot angle, you know, how distance, whether you were elevated or from a ground blind, all those things really come into play when thinking about how to handle that specific track.
Yeah.
Then from there you move into, as Dan touched on, would be, you know, locating and really bearing down on where the animal was located when the shot was taken and impact occurred. And then from there, the biggest mistake that I see is just taking up the track far too soon. Or sometimes on occasion around here in our area, maybe waiting a little too long depending on where the wound is and how to handle each specific situation. And then from there, I would say moving on to basically contaminating the scent line. I know, you know, around here hunting is a huge, huge deal, and everyone's very excited when they, you know, finally arrow a big one. And I do it myself. You know, you start burning up the phone lines, calling all your buddies. Pretty soon your tracking party's doubled or tripled, and they're all in there. And that basically is a big make or break deal for me when it comes to taking up a track on a whitetail deer, as far as having, if you've got 8, 9, 10 people in there tracking, it really makes it difficult on the dog and on myself and on, you know, the hunter as far as tracking goes.
There's another huge consideration there, because I see that all the time as well. And I'm like, man, if this is my own property, first off, I probably know the land better than anybody else, so I'm probably my biggest asset. But then if you have extra additional people, look at how many humans, your buddies are all coming. Half of them are wearing their blue jeans. They're not wearing their camouflage. You're basically you're going through this core area, because if the deer's not hit very well, he's going to go back to where he feels safe in the security, you know, maybe your sanctuary. And now you're taking 8 guys and walking through your sanctuary. Every mature buck that you had, other than the one you shot, is going to be vacating your property. I mean, they're not going to tolerate that.
Yes.
So, I mean, you should definitely do things a little bit smaller. The other thing I wanted to go back and revisit is shot angle. You know, we always preach quarter away or broadside at the minimum, and you still see people take the, you know, the front-on shots. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things I think that has really impacted the lighted nocks, which can really help you or hinder you, you know, depending on that shot angle. If that deer is quartering to you and you shoot, that lighted knock is way farther forward. Because we had this example, we were hunting in Kentucky, and one of the hunters in camp had shot a buck, and he swears that he made, you know, a really good shot. And he told me, he's like, yeah, he was quartering to me. He came when he was coming in, and when I saw him running, I saw the knock right behind his shoulder. Well, if you think about that, he hit that deer in the back ham. You know what I mean? There's no doubt in my mind he hit it in the ham. The knock would have been in the perfect spot up by the front shoulder, and the blood looked that way as well. Can you tell much about by the color of the blood?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing as far as the coloration of the blood is going to tell you, you know, muscle, liver blood is going to look quite a bit different than, you know, a muscle hit deer. Then you're talking about a paunch hit deer, which is back. That blood is going to be a little bit different. All that comes into play. some of the things that become very interesting is when you're dealing with a quartering animal, you know, essentially you're going to catch a couple things, hopefully, as the arrow passes through there. And that can create some false, you know, predispositions as to what actually happened with that arrow. I don't take the color of the blood into account a whole lot unless, you know, you start seeing something like some serious foamy blood, which is obviously a great sign, or some really super dark blood, because there's just so much that happens, and a lot of times the hunters just don't know themselves. As you said before, luminox or nocturnals, a lit knock, what an outstanding asset for us as hunters, but what's the first thing you see when that deer's exiting or you hit that lit knock?
Yeah.
You know, it just illuminates.
And your eye draws to that.
Absolutely, and it just, you know, when your eye is drawn to that lit knock, you just can't see the angle of the arrow or what happened. You know, if the hunter hit a limb or something, you know, the luminox could be hanging in the vitals.
Yes.
But essentially, where you, like you said, the broadhead may not be located right where they think it is.
Yeah. The other thing is, you know, a lot of times that arrow actually goes through and hits that offside shoulder, even on a good shot, and doesn't go all the way through. And that arrow bounces back out, and you see the luminox just flopping. Well, that deer's a dead deer. I mean, he's not going to go very far, but it looks like it's a lot poorer shot than what it really is.
Right, exactly.
Well, tell us a little bit about your services.
Well, as I said before, we specialize in using American bloodhounds. We use the track. I have 2 dogs myself. I've got another hound in Ohio with Tim Woods at Huntmasters Lodge. Essentially, you know, the hunters will give us a call. I try to gain the greatest amount of understanding as to what happened with them when the shot occurred. And it's a pretty extensive interview. You know, we're going through, like, as I said before, were you in a tree stand or ground blind? What was the angle of the deer? You know, how far was the shot? What did the deer do when you hit it? What was its body language? What did it do as it exited the scene? What did it do if you could still see it? You know, did it lay down? Did it stand back up? What did that deer show you, you know?
Well, you and I know the typical reactions, but run through them. Paunch hit, what's the reaction?
Well, paunch hit deer, the deer is generally going to hunch up. They're going to leave usually the area somewhat slowly. They may, you know, sprint out at first, but eventually they're going to hunch up, slowly exit the area. They may bed down in sight, then eventually get back up as they get uncomfortable, and then lay down again. Usually front end hit deer tend to exit 1,000,000 miles an hour from my experience. You know, usually head down, low down, anything in the front third. And then, I mean, as you get into the vitals area, obviously the mule kick is the big thing you're looking for. They're going to usually exit fairly quickly, and then if you don't see them drop on a double lung hit deer, they're not going to be far.
Yeah.
Liver hit's going to take a little bit longer, but you may see some similar body language from.
A lot of times on the liver, you'll see the tail wagging a
Yeah.
lot more too.
Yeah.
And they're not quite as hunched up as what they would on a typical paunch, but you can definitely tell that they're hurt bad. And a lot of times they'll go just, you know, out of your sight of view and lay bed down.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, and what we've done, you know, everyone asks the question, what is your success rate? What is your recovery rate? And it's such a tough question because you're dealing with so many different shots, you know, and if the shot's not good and the deer it fails to expire, you're obviously not going to recover that animal. So what we've kind of done is divide the deer into quadrants and said, okay, if the deer is hit in this area, we've got this percentage of recovering your deer, just to give the client a little better understanding of what happened in the woods and what, so that their expectations kind of meet ours as far as when we're taking up a track.
yes. Well, and that goes into, you know, you're assuming that client knows where he actually hit the deer.
Exactly.
That's the biggest thing, because when people are excited, especially on big deer or a first deer, normally they don't really know where they hit. And my favorite story is my brother-in-law. I got him into archery hunting, and this goes back probably 10 years ago. And I put him in a good spot, and he actually shot a 10-pointer. And I went to get him, and he's like, "Man, I just shot a big 10." Hit him absolutely perfect. And you know, I went over there and checked the blood trail, and in an hour and a half, and there's blood everywhere. I was like, "Man, all right, come on down, let's trail him." And we trailed him, and yeah, we found a dead deer hit right in the jugular.
Sure.
So his perfect shot had literally moved almost 3 feet.
Yeah.
So you start thinking about that, and that happens a lot more, you know, frequently than what what you and I would like to assume. But.
Exactly. Yeah, there's countless stories that I have where, you know, the hunter just swore up and down that the wound location was in this area, and we get up to the deer and it's totally in a different spot. So I can sympathize with you on that.
The other thing that people don't realize is the resiliency of some of these whitetails. I had single lung hit one, literally, basically center punched the one lung, but it was at just a steep angle that missed the other offside lung totally. And that deer is still, it was a tracking nightmare. Did we find it? Yeah, it was still alive 24 hours later.
Yeah.
But it was a difficult find. I got another arrow into it. It's a great success story. But had coyotes gotten on that deer or something, I mean, you may have never found that deer.
Right. Yeah. A lot of factors come into play. That's why it's such an interesting topic.
Yeah. So how much does a typical service cost?
Well, what we have done is that we'll charge $150 to drop the dog to come out and run the track, and then $150 if we find the deer. The reason we kind of we've always done it, but stick to the finder's fee is to make sure the client knows that we're working hard for that extra. Yeah. I mean, as far as a flat rate goes, essentially I could say, hey, it's $500 for me to come out and track your deer, and I get out there and say, it's no good, and leave the track, Yeah. So that's why I like to leave that little overhanging cash amount to.
Because it's your best effort.
Yeah.
And if you really don't think you're going to find the deer, you're going to call it off.
Exactly. And they're going to see our best effort. Like I said, I could do it for $0, and just the fact of pride as far as training dogs that are successful at this, and it's that important. However, there are some costs that we got to cover with our dogs, and they're a large dog. They pound dog chow.
Well, let's say so. A guy wants to do it on his own. I mean, there's a lot of work getting that dog set up. First, you got to select a good breed, right? What are the most popular breeds?
I would say the two most popular breeds that you're going to deal with are the wire-haired dachshund, as Dan talked about right before this, a flat-coated dachshund, hound. Bloodhounds are a pretty popular breed. Although they're such a large breed dog, a lot of people have some issues with that. It's not exactly a walk in the park following a 120-pound dog through the woods at night, and they're moving out. They're athletic, despite the Beverly Hillbillies dog you see laying on the porch. That's just not quite the dogs that we're running on these tracks. So there's a little bit of difference there. You see, Jeremy Moore, he has English Labs he uses, and that's a viable breed. Beagles, walkers, hounds. But I would say the wire-haired dachshunds, flat-coat dachshunds, and bloodhounds are the most popular. European breed of the Bavarian mountain hound you see dropping in, because this stuff kind of originated in Europe, so their dogs, Hanover hounds, things like that, are kind of the pioneers. However, it's just become such a challenge for us to get those breeds into the United States that these are some of the breeds that we've kind of turned to over here.
The other thing that people don't realize, I mean, it's not like you're just going to go out and buy a lab or a bloodhound and then, I shot this deer, get on this. I mean, you got a lot of training that goes into these things.
Yes, yeah. From the moment that I pick up a pup, and essentially the only thing that puppy's mind is really on is food, water, and going to the bathroom. We have them tracking. And now with my recent developments as far as employment goes, our dogs are tracking deer 365 days a year, whether it's through a hunting preserve, through crop damage tags, whatever we can pick up, however we can get it done, we're running these dogs on a nonstop basis. Because ultimately the way they learn is by doing, and it's so hard to get enough tracks in. If you're just a dog owner and a deer hunter, you're only going to shoot so many deer during the year. And to get that dog on enough tracks to really accelerate its performance and get it to where you want it to be at the right age, it's tough. It takes a lot of time.
That's a good point. How many tracks do you do in a typical year? I mean, what?
Last year I did 73 tracks throughout a fall.
That's more in a lifetime for the average hunter. I
right.
mean, the average guy probably doesn't shoot 73 deer.
Sure.
Schmidt shoots that a year.
Sure. And out on West Hill we'll get close at some point in time too. But I mean, it's 73 tracks, and I probably had 200 some phone calls, and my phone rings off the hook from the time the season's about to start here. We'll start getting calls until, into January, late season, when the season's closing, we're still tracking away. Wow. So it's a busy thing.
Now, do you have your own website?
Currently the website's under construction. Facebook page is Bloodhound Deer Trackers, just trackers, not the service is no longer on there. Visit us on there. There's a lot of videos, updates on the hounds throughout this season, stories, trials and tribulations, successes and failures, and because we don't find them all, unfortunately, but we like to keep people updated with whether the hunter got a trail camera picture of a deer that we were unable to find. We'll update you on things like that, and stories on the tracks and why we think we failed. We're still learning from every track too. No matter if you take 140 tracks in 2 years, there's still each situation is so unique that it's fun.
I've hunted in camp with where some of the guys, one of the owners has a dog that's very good, and he could literally, and it was a firearms operation, and he had such confidence in his dog that literally, like the guy would get out and he goes, I think I hit him. The guy would just pull his dog out, snap his fingers, the dog would jump out, and if he ran down and back and didn't do anything, he's like, I guarantee you two things. That guy did not touch that deer for sure. That is a live deer, and he wouldn't even go back in it. And literally, I was with him already where the guy said, I think I missed him. He did that same thing, and the dog just went nuts. He goes, no, you hit that deer. Let's get on it. Sure. So it's amazing to see, when these dogs do work and how good they can be. Sure,
yeah, that's a big thing, too, as far as, like as you touched on earlier, running and training with your dog, learning how to read that dog and what it looks like when it's the success is imminent, or what it looks like when the dog is kind of like, it's just not happening for me because this deer is alive.
What kind of advice would you give to somebody that, okay, so I made a questionable shot, a paunch, a liver, whatever, what should I do? I mean, what would you tell them to do?
Well, ideally for me, they would leave basically the scene of the crime, I call it, and as soon as possible, and make a phone call, whether to a tracker, whether that be me or someone else that you have in mind. Purely because your tracker that you're calling has seen a few more of these most likely than the average hunter. And also for me, as I said before, getting so many phone calls, if the hunter calls me, I can get control of that situation. And by controlling it, I mean, okay, this is where you think it was hit. This is how I would advise. And my decisions aren't always right. I'm not a true expert on the situations, but I can advise them what to do should they need to call me in. And it just makes my life so much easier when I'm thinking about the 100 phone calls that I got in the last 2 days, which track seemed more successful and which tracks aren't. And, if you can get out and at least have a conversation with a guy that's done it, 70 sometimes in a year, and ask him what he thinks, and then at least he can advise you, hey, go out there with one other guy, check it out, because normally that's what I'll do. Hey, take your buddy, be very careful on the scent trail. If it looks outstanding when you're starting the track, by all means continue cautiously. If it looks like, outlook not so good, pull out and call me back, and we'll be ready to go. And at least then your name is in my head, the situation's written down. I've kind of formulated an opinion on what's going to kind of transpire when we get out there, and it's a big help.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's little tips that a person, if they really understand their property, and how the deer react in that property, like I have cricks that go through ours. So I know literally if we lose a blood trail, and that deer is going back into one of the sanctuaries, he's going to cross a creek. When he jumps across a creek, more than likely he's going to open back up that wound, and you can find blood where you easily lost it. And again, my dad, as just being a gun hunter, firearms hunter, he never realized or saw how those deer reacted in our own property, even though he hunted it all of his life. And I can remember when I was probably 17 or 18, and he hit one poor, and we lost the blood, and he's like, let's go back by the creek. And he's like, why are we doing that? And I said, well, 90% of the deer are going to cross from this spot to this spot. Sure. We'll find your blood. And we found the blood. We never did find that deer, but we did find the blood. Sure. But, there's little tips like that you can take up. So the best advice I can give you, if you do, shoot a deer and you can't find it, give one of these guys a call. I mean, they may find a trophy of a lifetime. I think last year, opening weekend, did you help our buddy Matt from Real Deal Mineral find his deer, 180, 190-inch deer?
Yeah, yep.
So there's definitely, and any deer that you're willing to harvest deserves, if you think he drew blood and you did draw blood, I think you deserve to actually give your best effort finding that whitetail.
Right, and before we go, I'll just correct a little bit. Blood is a big factor in finding these deer, but ultimately the reason why I preach it's about running your dogs and training with them and training by doing is because a wounded deer secretes a different interdigital scent through the bottom of his hooves than a live healthy deer. Same as a pack of wolves or coyotes will use to separate a sick or a lame or an injured deer. That's what we're retraining our dogs to do. So essentially, if you've hit the deer and there is no blood, that's where we make our money per se. Yeah. Because it's nice to have blood, and normally human beings a good tracker, which is obviously a part of hunting. I still do it even though I own the dogs. can follow that blood trail. But when there is no blood, what do you do also?
And that's a great point. The predators, and a dog is a predator, from years ago, that's what they have the instincts in. They can identify that sick animal, and that's where the wolves take down the weakest or the smallest. Yeah. And literally that's what you're trying to do here. So that's a great comparison.
Sure, yeah.
Well, that's it. That's all we have for Deer Talk now for today. Thank you very much for all the information. I think it gives hunters in general a good idea of what they should do next after they release that arrow. Until next week, I'm Brad Rucks. We'll see you next week.
What started on the drawing board became a trophy. Engineers at Federal Premium Ammunition designed the trophy-bonded tip bullet to deliver devastating, bone-crushing performance. With a translucent polymer tip and boat-tail design, Trophy Tip provides flatter trajectories and improved accuracy. Plus, a solid copper shank jacket and bonded core mean high weight retention and deep penetration. Trophy Bonded Tip from Federal Premium Ammunition. Claim your trophy.